Hello everyone, back tuning in to the first Autumn 2019 Analogues update from GWV.com. So, over the next 3 months, we're going to be doing regular autumn updates, and of course, it's going to all build up to the end of August when we will release and forecast for the autumn of 2019. So, there are going to be several Analogues updates over the next 3 months, and also there'll be 3 seasonal model roundups that we will do at the end of this month, at the end of June, at the end of July, and at the end of August. It will all build up to the autumn forecast. That autumn forecast is going to be released. Haven't got the date penciled in yet, but it will be released towards the end of August. So this is the first update, and this week we're going to be focusing on the QBO, the Quasi-Biennial-Oscillation, but we're going to pick up actually, first of all, where we left off with the summer forecast. Of course, we released just 1 week ago. Now, it's going to be a busy day at GWV today, so later on today we'll have the GWV Sunny Roundup, of course, so that's going to be your eclectic sunny afternoon mix of this and that. We'll also have an update for Download and also the Isle of Wight Festival. That'll be getting underway in a couple of weeks' time. And there's going to be a written post for Glastonbury as well coming up this afternoon. So all the events for the summer really are cranking up now. Big thank you to our Analogues guru, James Ackrill. So James got all of these analogues together for us. So as ever, a big thank you to James for getting all of the analogues together for us. And a big thank you to Richard Trott as well, who has created the GWV's 2019 Autumn Updates gifts. So nice little picture there to begin the updates. It's going to be quite a long video, so if you can't watch it all in one go, then don't worry, you will be able to watch the video whenever you want on demand on the autumn updates and eventually forecast page. This video will be placed on that page later on this evening. There'll be a written summary that goes over everything that we discuss in the video. And I think that's pretty much everything that I'm going to tell you. So sit back, enjoy, get yourself a comfy chair, a cup of tea, and maybe a couple of biscuits, and we'll crack on with the first update for the autumn of 2019. As I said, we're going to pick up the storyline where we left off, really, with the summer forecast. So these are the top years for the analogues within the summer forecast, and this is the actual analogue for the GWV.com summer 2019 forecast. So our top years, our top 4 years scoring 6 or more within our sort of methodology was 1914, 1989, 1990 and 1995. Those are the 4 top years within the GWV.com summer 2019 forecast methodology. This, of course, was the analogue for the summer of 2019, anticyclonic summer, really high pressure centred to our north, bringing in, you would have thought, very warm or possibly even hot east winds, particularly focusing on August for being perhaps the hottest and driest month of the summer. But all 3 summer months could have some hot weather based on that analogue. So what we've done first of all is that we just wanted to carry through those top scoring years into the autumn to see how the autumn's looking for those top scoring years within the summer forecast. So this is how the Septembers are looking for these 4 top scoring years, scoring 6 or more within our summer forecast methodology. Again, 1914, 1989, 1990 and 1995. For September, for those 4 years, we tend to get an area of above average height centred just out to the west of the country, and we tend to bring below average heights in from the north into the UK and central parts of Europe. So potentially quite a coolish and quite an unsettled signal for September, particularly perhaps for more southern and eastern parts of the country. We're projecting doing something a little bit like that. Bear in mind that we've got 1989 in there. That was a very dry and warm September. So within those 4 years, there are deviations. But overall, for the 4 years combined, it does look a rather cool, relatively unsettled signal for the Septembers. Let's how the Octobers look for our top scoring years from the summer forecast. So for the Octobers, again, we tend to have an anticyclonic signal, but this time the high pressure is kind of like centred over or just a little bit to the east of the country. So it changes its position from being to the west of us in September to being over and to the east of us in October. Below average heights tend to be extending down through the middle of the Atlantic. So that's just a relatively dry signal for these Octobers, and quite warm as well. The jet stream will be doing something a bit like that. So the jet stream is pushed north. So relatively warm and dry conditions for October after quite a coolish and wettish signal for September. That's how November looks for our top scoring years, scoring 6 or more within the summer forecast methodology. And November for these 4 years, 1914, 1989, 1990 and 1995 looks like this. Above average heights generally centred to the north of us, below average heights to the south. So still quite a dry signal even into the Novembers, although the low pressure to the south could bring wet weather into more southern parts of the country in particular. It is quite an anticyclonic signal, maybe relatively cool as well, maybe a relatively cool signal for November, but quite dry. Perhaps. So if you put all of those 3 months together, September, October, November, this is how the autumns themselves are coming out. It is an anticyclonic signal. High pressure looks like it carries on into the autumn, really, from what is an anticyclonic summer, of course, with these top 4 scoring years from the summer forecast. So again, you expect high pressure to be very, very close to the country. Low pressure is up to the north. Jet stream tends to be pushing northwards with these autumns as well. But do bear in mind there's a bit of variation with the position of the high pressure through the autumn. So September, high pressure out to the west, that allows more influence from the jet stream, potentially cool and unsettled for September. Then the high pressure sort of builds over the country in October, bringing us a relatively dry month and potentially even quite warm. And then the high pressure maybe goes a bit further north in November, bringing us another dry month, yes, but also quite a cool month potentially as well. So putting it all together, it is clearly an anticyclonic signal for these autumns. But the position of the high pressure is sort of changing month by month. Anyway, we thought it'd be interesting to, kind of follow on from the summer forecast and just show you those analogues from the summer forecast if we carry them through into the autumn. Obviously, we don't know how those analogues are going to perform for the summer, never mind the autumn, but we thought it'd be an interesting place to sort of pick things up. Right, I'm going to pause the video there. I've only been talking for 7 minutes. I'm going to pause the video there, go and get a drink of water. 8 minutes now. I'm going to go and get a drink of water. And when we come back, we're going to go for the main part of this first autumn 2019 Analogues update, which we'll be looking at the QBO, in the westerly phase of the QBO. And we're going to be talking about that in the second part of the video. But I'll pause the video there, and I'll see you around 2 seconds' time. Okay, we're back, and we are ready to resume the first autumn 2019 Analogues update from GWV.com. So just before we pause the video, we talked about the analogues from the summer forecast and the top 4 sort of scoring years for the summer forecast analogues, and carry those through to the autumn, just as a bit of fun as the sort of place to start with the autumn updates. Now we're going to talk about the QBO, though, the Quasi-Biennial-Oscillation. So let's get on with sort of like the main point of this first update for the autumn of 2019. So this chart is depicting all of the QBO phases going right way back to the 1950s. The QBO is a cyclical, sort of annual, also cyclical, weakening and strengthening of the zona westerlies. So when the zona westerlies go into their westerly phase, then you are kind of like, or when the QBO goes into its zona westerly phase, you are kind of like powering up the zona westerlies. When the QBO goes into its easterly phase, you are weakening the zonal westerlies. So these westerly and easterly phases of the QBO sort of wax and wane from month to month and from year to year. We are in the westerly phase of the QBO right now. We're going to stay in the westerly phase of the QBO into the summer. We're expecting, though, as going to be autumn, we may well start to see the westerly phase of the QBO decline. Probably not reversing into the easterly phase of the QBO this autumn, but probably the westerly phase of the QBO could peak in the summer and then decline through the autumn. It could peak in the autumn, then start its decline through the autumn. So just to show what we're talking about here, let's go down to the latest year, to 2019, also look at 2018 as well. So these negative numbers are where we've got the easterly phase of the QBO. That's what was in through much of last year, of course, in the easterly QBO. You notice through the autumn last year, the easterly QBO reached its peak in July, that month just there, minus 29.10. You notice that through August, September, October, we see a weakening of the easterly QBO. In November 2018, we go into the westerly phase of QBO. So this westerly phase of the QBO began last autumn in November, and then powering up through December, and then sort of westerly phase, but quite stable through January and February, getting stronger through March and April. We don't yet have May's QBO number in yet, as I'll do a video on the 1st of June. So you see that last autumn we sort of reversed from easterly to westerly QBO. What we're looking for this autumn is sort of a decline of westerly QBO. I'm not sure we'll actually reverse into an easterly QBO through this autumn. That will probably happen in the winter. This coming winter, 2019-20, will probably be a west to east transitioning QBO winter. But for the autumn, we'll probably just see a decline of the westerly QBO. Where I would expect this westerly QBO to peak is probably around August or September. So this is going to be May's number just here. This will be June's number just here, and then July just there. That's going to be August. That might be the peak of this westerly phase of QBO, but I think it's more likely actually being September that we will peak this westerly phase of the QBO. Possibly, if it comes late, in October, just there. And then I would think November, December probably declines westerly QBO, not going into the easterly QBO in those months, but just a decline of the westerly QBO beginning to happen later in the autumn, if you like. So what we're going to look for this autumn is a declining westerly QBO signal. So we've looked back through the years, go all the way back to the 1950s, of course, and these are the autumns that we've found that are declining westerly QBO autumns. Now, they may peak in the westerly QBO may peak at some point through these autumns, but then they start to decline. So some of these years, the peak of westerly QBO happened in the summer, and then through the autumn there'll be a decline of westerly QBO. Some of these years they will actually peak for westerly QBO in the autumn itself, probably early in the autumn, and then the decline will take place later in the autumn. So I hope that explains what we do. So the first declining westerly QBO autumn that we've found is 1959. This is a very anticyclonic autumn. Lots of high pressure sitting over, let's change the colour, lots of high pressure sitting over and to the north of the country, with below average heights out to west and also to our south. That brings us an easterly to southeasterly wind. Lots of dry weather through that autumn and pretty warm too. It's a very extended summer in 1959. The summer begins actually in the spring. The summer itself is absolutely vintage, one of the best summers of the 20th century, and it still goes on well into the autumn, certainly September and most of October, giving lots of dry and warm weather in 1959 through that declining westerly QBO autumn. The next autumn we've been able to find with a declining westerly QBO signal is 1969. So this one, again, with below average heights up to the north, above average heights through the country. So again, very anticyclonic looking signal in the autumn of 1969. The jet stream is pushed there. It has a really warm October. Of course, there's two back-to-back very warm Octobers in 1968 and 1969. Very dry, very warm October, and generally a pretty dry and warm autumn overall as well. Very quiet autumn in 1969. The next declining westerly QBO autumn I've been able to find is 1973. This one again anticyclonic. So already it appears that you do have a trend with this. It looks like I have a trend towards anticyclonic autumns through declining westerly QBO phases. This one with the above average heights kind of like just sent a little bit to our west, a deep trough in over Scandinavia, very cold and wet autumn for northern Europe, but for us just very quiet conditions, not a great deal going on, a lot of dry weather and fine conditions through the autumn of 1973. 1978 is our next declining westerly QBO autumn. This one, again, giving us quite a strong anticyclonic signal. The difference this time is that high pressure is more or less centred over top of the country. So this is a really dry and warm autumn in 1978. Of course, the winter of 78, 79 was very cold and wintry. Famous winter discontent. But for the autumn of 1978, no real sign of that whatsoever. It's just a very dry, quiet, anticyclonic sort of autumn. Really mild through most of it. It's only in the sort of in the final week or so of November 1978, but it suddenly starts getting much colder. But through most of that autumn, just very dry, quiet, and quite warm in the autumn of 1978. 1980 is next. This one's a little bit different. This is our first one that looks a bit more unsettled. So this one with below average heights over Scandinavia, above average heights out to the northwest of us, and that brings us more of a northerly flow. So it's a colder and more unsettled autumn in 1980. That said, it does have a very dry and quite warm September, I think, but then a big flip in October 1980 to a cold, wet month. And then actually there's a really cold spell in November of 1980 with some early snow for bonfire night. The next one is 1985. Again, this is declining westerly QBO autumn. And this one back to anticyclonic, really above average heights, again centred almost over top of the UK, below average heights out of the Atlantic. Jet streams push northwards like that. So it's quite an interesting autumn. It has a dry and pretty warm September. October is a bit more changeable, but generally very mild month. Then much colder in November. November 1985, it's a very cold month once again, and it starts really early on as well with unusually cold easterly winds in by bonfire night. It's just generally quite a cold and wintry November in 1985. This is the autumn of 1990, again declining westerly QBO autumn. This one looks rather different. It has above average heights out to the northwest of us. So high pressure is in play, but it's kind of like out to our northwest with below average heights, kind of like over to the south of the country. And Leeds are doing something a bit like that with the flow or with the jet stream. So this one has quite an unsettled September. October is quite warm, and then November goes a little bit cooler. But again, nothing particularly cold through that autumn in 1990. Then we're into 1995. So again, this is declining westerly QBO autumn. Remember, this turns up in our as one of our leading years for the summer forecast analogues as well. So 1995 has an anticyclonic signal, again really with above average heights very close to the country, below average heights kind of like to the south. Although it does have an unsettled September. September 1995 is quite a wet month, particularly for more eastern parts of the country usually. little bit less so out in the west. But then October goes very dry and really warm in October of 1995. It kind of like goes back to the summer pattern, if you like, in a lot of ways. And then November is a very mild month again, or it's a mild month, but it's a little bit more unsettled in November. Overall, though, quite an anticyclonic signal once again for the autumn of 1995. Not much further on to 1997. Again, declining westerly QBO autumn, and this one with above average heights sort of over and a little bit to the north of the country, below average heights out to west and also to the east. So again, quite an anticyclonic signal that we see for this autumn, particularly in September, but also October has quite a lot of dry weather too. November is a lot wetter in 1997. 2002 is the next year. This one's very different compared to anything else that we've seen, really. So the autumn of 2002 has above average heights, quite a strong blocking signal away to our north, below average heights kind of like to the south. So this one, again, relatively warm, dry September, goes really wet in October, very wet October in 2002, and then November also, I think, is quite a wet month in 2002. Despite the northern blocking, there's not really much in the way of cold weather, although the second half of October does get a little bit colder, but generally not much in the way of cold weather for the autumn of 2002. And then with the last time, and well, you know, I just got rid of that. So the last year was going to be 2004. Now, I want to show you 2004. Don't want you to miss out on anything. I've just closed the tab, annoyingly. So what I'm going to have to do is pause the video. I'm going to get 2004 up, and then I will show you that very last year that we've got for declining westerly QBO phases. A little bit embarrassing, sorry about that. I'm going to get that chart back up for you right now. Okay, we're back once again. Sorry about that. As I've been going on, I've been closing the tabs, and I closed the wrong tab. So it's been a very long day. Hope you'll forgive me that. It's pretty warm again in GWV Towers tonight. You remember when we did last year's season of autumn updates, things got a little bit intense with the heat, actually, and on a couple of those late night recordings I actually felt a little bit unwell. Well, it's not that bad tonight, but it is very warm. It has been a very warm day today, so maybe here we go again, another season of late night recordings where we're going to be under stress, or I'm going to be under stress with the heat. But anyway, I've got 2004 up for you, so this is the last, get rid of that, this is the last declining westerly QBO autumn. It's 2004, so it's been a long while actually since we had an autumn that was declining westerly QBO. So we are well overdue for an autumn that coincided with a declining westerly QBO phase. This is how the autumn of 2004 looks. Again, quite an anticyclonic signal, so it is apparent that within these analogues, I think we do have quite an anticyclonic signal for these autumns that are declining westerly QBOs. Remember, the QBO itself might be peaking, westerly QBO itself might be peaking within these autumns, but they would still, after that peak, be declining through the autumns, if you see what I'm getting at. So that's how the autumn of 2004 looks. Quite an anticyclonic autumn again. This time the high pressure tends to be just out to our west. This one has a pretty warm, dry September. It has a much more unsettled October, though, in 2004. And then we get back to the high pressure signal again, really in November of 2004. So within these, there is a bit of intra-month variation going on. And within this particular autumn, it's October. That's the unsettled one, similar to 2002 in a lot of ways. Well, let's put all of that together and see how these autumns themselves are coming out when we're talking about a declining westerly QBO. And for September, where it's an anticyclonic signal for September. Now, bear in mind, there are years that are deviating. So we've got 1995. That was quite a wet September But overall, when we put these together, we see that actually we tend to get quite a strong anticyclonic signal for the Septembers. We tend to get a lot of high pressure centered just to our north in the September, or over, and maybe a little bit slightly to our north. October also anticyclonic. Look at that, tends to have quite a bit of high pressure in these Octobers, with above average heights again over and ridging slightly to the north once again. The below average heights, they tend to be kind of like out to the west. Jet streams tends to be doing something a little bit like that. So a lot of dry and fine conditions in the Octobers. November looks a little bit different with a declining westerly QBO. The high pressure in November tends to go a little bit more towards the northwest. So you tend to go up a little bit more towards the south of Greenland, with below average heights tending to be further south. So it's just a little bit more of a northern blocking signal in November. Maybe these Novembers can be a little bit colder and perhaps a little bit more unsettled. It's not a wet signal because the Atlantic is blocked off, but maybe these Novembers can be just a little bit more unsettled. And then we get through to the autumn itself. This is how all of the months and years combined are looking when we're in a declining westerly QBO phase. It's an anticyclonic signal for the autumns. Tends to have above average heights over the top of the country. Now, as I've gone along with those charts, I've become aware that I've missed out 1999. So I haven't shown you the reanalysis that James sent through for the autumn of 1999. But again, had quite an anticyclonic signal. Very warm September, hot September. And then as we went through into October and November, again, quite a lot of dryish weather really through the autumn of 1999. So I think to prove the point, actually, that with these autumns, we tend to get a lot of high pressure signals where we're in a declining westerly QBO phase. And there are exceptions to that, and there are, particularly in terms of months within those autumns, so there are more unsettled months within that. September 1995, for example, and I suppose, let's think of another one, maybe October 2002 or October 2004. So you get the idea that there will be deviations within this, but overall, it's declining westerly QBO phase does appear to be an anticyclonic signal. So that's it. We're off and running with the autumn updates. I hope you found it interesting and informative. As I say, I made a little mistake there with the tab. Had to pause the video and get 2004 up. And I forgot to bring in 1999 as well, which is a little bit annoying. I know people will notice that within the video and they'll comment about it. So I've got in first on that one. So we're off and running anyway with the autumn updates. Hope you found it interesting and informative. Not sure what we're doing next week, but there will be an autumn analogues update through next week. I suspect we'll probably start looking up May data, maybe, or maybe even spring data, springs to autumn, something like that anyway. But we'll let you know this time next week what we're doing. Right, off and running with the autumn updates, and the GWV Autumn 2019 forecast will be released at the end of August. This video will be placed on the autumn updates and forecast page with an extensive written summary going over everything that we discussed in the video. We'll be back later on with GWV's Sunday Roundup, and also we're going to have those updates for a written update for Glastonbury and a video update for download. So keep checking back to all of the updates. But that's all for now, and thanks for watching.